They wouldn't let her try on shoes until she owned the store. I was there the first time Teresa walked into Hanley's shoes. It was the summer of '97, one of those hot July afternoons when the pavement seemed to radiate waves of heat. The kind of heat that made you rethink every decision that took you out of an air-conditioned space. But Teresa, with her thick, wavy black hair and the determined set to her jaw, walked into Hanley's as if she belonged there. Except, according to Hanley's, she didn't. Teresa had just gotten off her shift at the diner down the street. Her uniform still smelled of bacon grease, and there was a faint coffee stain on her sleeve. She worked hard. Everyone in our town knew that. She picked up shifts at the diner, helped her uncle on his farm, and still managed to ace her community college courses. That afternoon, she had finally saved enough money to buy herself a proper pair of shoes, something sturdy, something that didn't make her feet ache after 10 hours on her feet. She had barely stepped inside when the store manager, a man named Paul Hanley, who had inherited the place from his father, stepped forward, blocking her way. "Can I help you?" His voice had that clipped tone, the one people used when they already had an answer in mind. Teresa nodded, shifting the envelope of cash in her hand. "Yeah, I'd like to try on a pair of the walking shoes in the window, the ones with the cushioned soles." Hanley didn't even glance at the display. His eyes flicked to her uniform, the smudges of work on her hands. "I don't think we have anything in your size," he said, even though the wall behind him was stocked with every size imaginable. Teresa's fingers curled around the cash in her hand. "I'd still like to check." Hanley sighed like she was wasting his time. "I'm sorry. We reserve our stock for paying customers." That was when the entire store went quiet. There were a few other shoppers, mostly older women, the kind who had been shopping there for years. I was standing near the counter, returning a pair of loafers my father had bought me that I didn't like. And I remember the way Teresa stood there for a second, processing what had just happened. Then she nodded. "I see how it is." She turned on her heel and walked out. And for years, that's how things were at Hanley's. People like Teresa weren't welcome. But the thing about people like Teresa? They don't forget. Fast forward 10 years. Hanley's wasn't the store it had once been. Bigger chain stores had opened up in the city, and people weren't as keen on buying overpriced shoes from a small-town store with outdated policies. Paul Hanley struggled. His father had passed away, and he didn't have the same business instincts. Rent went up, sales went down, and one day, the store went up for auction. I remember seeing the flyer at the diner, where Teresa now managed the books. She was different from the girl who had been turned away all those years ago. Sharper, more confident. And when she saw that Hanley's was for sale, she didn't hesitate. She bought it. I'll never forget the grand reopening. It was packed. The sign still said Hanley's, but inside it was a whole different world. Bright, welcoming. There were racks of shoes for every budget, comfortable seats for customers to try them on. And Teresa? She was standing right at the entrance, greeting every single person who walked through that door. When Paul Hanley showed up, looking like he had swallowed something sour, she greeted him too. "Paul," she said with a smile, "can I help you find something?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. And then, in front of everyone, Teresa did something that cemented that day in our town's history. She pulled out a chair and patted it. "Sit down. Let me help you find the right size." The silence was thick. Paul Hanley looked at her, at the store, at the people watching. And then, like a man finally realizing the weight of his own mistakes, he sat down. Teresa knelt in front of him, just like he had refused to do for her all those years ago. She fitted him for a pair of shoes, and when she was done, she stood up, met his eyes, and said, "That'll be $89.99. He paid. And that was the day Teresa became more than just a girl who once got turned away at Hanley's. She became the woman who owned the store, the woman who changed the rules, and trust me, nobody ever got turned away again.